What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? FortyeniN coming at you with another community shoutcast for the UGC Dota League Season 2. We're loading into the quarterfinals for the Easten invite, so it's a best-of-3 series between Tuzki or Husky up against FortyeniN, mate. This is game number 2. Off the back of a very incredible performance coming in from FortyeniN, mate, who were actually able to decide game number 1 off the back of a single team fight. Unfortunately, I disconnected right as the team fight got really heated. From what I saw, UGTFO came in from the back, called out 3 heroes to Ravage. You had the instant Bleak dual purification combo to bring down Pork, and without Pork, Tuzki or Husky, the entire lineup fell apart. Really did boil down to the fact that, despite the fact that Pork, as well as Tumbling, who is currently going by standard I Suck Lol on the Lycanthrope, as well as the Death Prophet, were able to find an exceptional amount of farm in the early stages of the game, especially in the laning phase. I believe they were the top 2 CSs as far as the scoreboards were concerned. Of course, the drawback is the fact that because Tumbling spent the entire game dodging fights and playing very passively as a Lycanthrope when he should have been playing very actively and very aggressively in these early team fights, Tuzki or Husky, the rest of their team, they can't fight 4v5. Especially since their lineup was designed to fight as a unit of 5. You had the Death Prophet to draw them back with the Exorcism, you've got the Lycanthrope which carry the Melt Towers, and then you have the Ogre Magi throwing in the Fire Blast and the Phoenix to be able to draw fire with the Supernova. They weren't able to do this. And as a result, King Killer on the Slark, 25-minute Ayaskadi, even though he had a delayed 16-minute Shadow Blade as opposed to the optimal 14-minute Shadow Blade, was really able to do a lot of work. Especially since you had the team fight combo coming in from the Repelled, Leech Commander Bleak dueling one of your carries, or you've got the fact that Kin's now Repelled, he's got Dark Pact, and he's got Shadow Dance. You can't do anything to stop the Slark train. So Tuzki or Husky, exact same 2 bands coming in from them, Terrorblade as well as the Viper, and yeah, nah, mate, if they say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They also opt to ban out Centaur Warren and Pandarian Brewmaster. UGTFO gonna be picking up the Titanzilla once again, so everyone wants a piece of that big old tasty watermelon. Tuzki or Husky this time, they've got second pick, so it will be interesting to see what 2 heroes they decide to pick up. Interesting to note that game number 1, Skywrath Mage, wasn't picked or banned, and considering the fact that Skywrath Mage and Ogre Magi currently the 2 most powerful support heroes in the 8-2C meta, very surprising. Just because, I guess Tuzki or Husky, because they picked up the Jakiro, they needed Ogre as a reliable setup as opposed to the Skywrath. But the Jakiro pickup in that support position role, even though Lithium, despite having, I believe he had 1k ping at one point, fantastic ice paths coming up from him, reactive as well as in terms of initiation, just wasn't enough. That's the reason why you usually want Jakiro as a 3. You need farm on Jakiro for him to really be effective, because once he picks up the Yule Scepter, he can set up kills on his own. He doesn't need anybody to hold his hand. Yules them up into the air, drop Macro Pyre, drop Ice Path into Dual Breath, then throw in the Liquid Fire. You do, I believe it's 700 damage off the bat, assuming they walk out of the Macro Pyre right after the Ice Path wears off, but it's usually enough damage for you to be able to find a kill. Also, it helps you melt towers. Tuzki or Husky, this time they pick up Razor. Razor was banned by them. They go for the TI4 combination, the combo that everyone is sick of as first and second pick, Razor and the Skywrath Mage. The reason why these 2 heroes were constantly picked up, and the reason why they were both nerfed quite heavily, is because they're both incredibly good at pretty much every scenario you could throw at them. Razor, you could pretty much throw him into any lane, so long as he's never outnumbered, so 1v1. So you've got a 1-to-1 ratio. That being said, some teams, Australian teams actually run Razor as an offlane hero from time to time as a safe lane offlaner, so they run him in their safe lane 1v3 against aggro tri-lane. But how effective this is fairly debatable. You can run it, it's not the best thing in the world, but it's not the worst. Razor, if it comes down to nitty-gritty, he's basically a Swiss Army knife made of kinky lightning. He's got a tool for every single situation. You could usually build him to be as flexible as possible. Since Razor, back in the TI4 era, he was always your mech carrier, because it gave him a huge amount of EHP, so he could afford to go ham, dive towers, do it whatever the hell he wanted. Also provides that HP buffer to the rest of his team. Nowadays, Razor, you play him much more the way that Evil Genius played the Razor back in TI4, which is a greedy, much more carry-oriented route, so you see Razors nowadays rush the Aghanim Scepter or choose to go for Drums of Endurance treads into a BKB very early on, just so they could take these engagements with the huge amount of damage potential you've got coming in from the Static Link Eye of the Storm, as well as the fact that you've got Razor running at you, and he forces your sports to run away, and he's going to run them down since he's got unstable current, and he's walking around whipping them down. Skywrath Mage, the reason why he is picked up in almost every single game is the fact that he is so incredibly good for a support hero. And he's one of the few support heroes that could actually deal them the same amount of damage as a core position ganker, such as a Nyx Assassin, with that Mystic Flare Ancient Seal combination. Also provides you setup and damage, so you've got the Concussive Shot to set up for another slower support hero, such as a Vengeful Spirit, or an Ogre Magi. Then you've got the Arcane Bolts, which hurt like hell, especially the way competitive scene as Skywrath Mages tend to build, which is double Null Talisman, into Tranquil Boots, Double Down Talisman, into either a 4-staff or a Yule Scepter, depending on the lineup. It does give you good increase in damage as well as enough mana pool for you to throw out all your abilities. Skywrath Mage, very versatile hero. If Skywrath Mage catches out Disruptor, if he doesn't have Static Storm, he can't do anything. He throws out a few cheeky Thunder Strikes and the Skywrath Mage laughs at them, Ancient Seals him and smacks him down with Owl Poop. Disruptor, very powerful pickup against the Skywrath Mage, however, if he gets that Static Storm off. Since Skywrath Mage, if you silence him, he's a range creep that has 0 armor. He's going to die very quickly, especially when you've got the follow-up Ravage. Tuzki or Husky, looks like we do have a Respect Omni Knight ban coming out from them. Well, yeah, no, mate, they ban out the Bristleback and the Phantom Assassin. So very interesting bans. These are actually bans that these are heroes they should be picking up, since Bristleback is an excellent counter to Skywrath Mage, and Skywrath Mage doesn't have enough burst damage to puncture Bristleback, and Bristleback, with their Quill Spray, since Quill Spray is physical damage, and since you're guaranteed to get at least 3 Quill Spray procs off when Skywrath Mage engages on you, if he chooses to chase you, Skywrath Mage with 0 armor dies very quickly, so Bristleback could turn around, eat the entire Mystic Flare, and kill Skywrath Mage with his own Mystic Flare by throwing out the Bristleback Quill Spray procs. So Skywrath Mage, you usually want to ban out Bristleback if you pick up the Skywrath. So very interesting draft coming in from mate. Bristleback also an offlane or a core hero that you actually haven't seen in a very long while. Just due to the fact that the meta, it's slowed down now, no longer as fast as it used to be. You no longer have these 20-minute YOLO Vici gaming games where you just take racks in the first 14 minutes and then just step on the enemy team and prevent them from ever being able to get their berries. So Bristleback was fantastic in those games. Nowadays, because games tend to decide themselves in a single fight in the 25 to 30 minute mark, usually if you catch a team without buyback at the 25 to 30 minute mark, you can actually take racks if you've got a powerful pushing lineup, or you put your team in a good enough position by recovering because they're so far ahead that when you kill them, the net worth ratio, because it's calculated in their favor, gives you a huge bounty and gold as well as experience. You can start to turn the game around from that point. So it's the reason why Bristleback no longer is relevant, because past the first 20 minutes or 25 minutes, he really does taper off hard. Tuzki or Husky pick up faces Void, and I'm gonna expect it to be a 1-position Void. Every single competitive team that picks up Void in the A2C meta, they always run him as a core because Void no longer is an effective offlane hero. But due to the fact that A, he's too greedy, B, Chronosphere has been nerfed to the ground, it's got 10 seconds additional cooldown, which doesn't seem like much, but it's a big deal, especially for the level 1 Chronosphere, which an offlane Void is going to be working with for the vast majority of the time. Also, no longer disables passive, so if they pick up Void, you pick up a Phantom Assassin, and you laugh at his face, and you laugh all the way to the bank, because once that Chronosphere wears off, you're going to coup de grace him in the face. And yeah, no, mate, they pick up the Deuces. So they've got one of the best counters to a Faceless Void. Faceless Void, he's a definition of first strike. You go in, you leap a target, Chronosphere a target, kill target in Chronosphere, you should be able to win a fight by doing that. If you're not able to kill a target in the Chronosphere, then things fall apart, because you've got 10 seconds to Master Mana time still active. Mom Spaghetti bites you on the ass with the 30% damage increase that you're receiving from having that active. You're usually not going to have BKB until the 25-26 minute mark if you decide to go for that BKB fairly early on. So that means that you can't effectively fight in those first 26 minutes, especially against a Medusa who laughs at your face, especially with the Spell Shield active. Since Medusa's Spell Shield's be buffed, so it's now 60% magic reduction. Well, 60% of all incoming damage is converted to damage to her mana instead of to her HP pool, and to put Medusa into context at how ridiculously overpowered she is if she gets to the late game, the reason why Anti-Mage ever became viable as a competitive hero is the fact that they reworked Manta Style, so it didn't build up Diffusal Blade, so Anti-Mage actually had a reason to build it, since Diffusal Blade and his Feedback Orb actually cancelled each other out in Dota once and they wouldn't work. So now you've got Manta Style being a viable pickup on the Anti-Mage, and you've got the fact that Dusa was picked up in every single competitive game, picked or banned, just due to the fact that it's impossible to breach high ground against a Dusa. She spams Mystic Stake, she pops the Mana Shield, and she starts right-clicking down the creeps and saying, "Come at me." You can't kill her because she has such a ridiculous amount of damage absorption from the Mana Shield, which has actually been buffed, I believe, 3 times in the past 5-6 patches. It's been increased from 50% to 60%, the amount of mana, damage to mana is being increased, so it's a lot more efficient now. And I believe Split Shot was also buffed, so it's now always going to be, it always does full damage, but now you have less Split Shots than you used to, so Deuce has been buffed overall. We're also going to Undying pickup coming in from mate. They love to run Undying in that support position role, so we might actually be seeing dual lanes coming out from mate. This is something they usually do if they pick up an Undying, since Undying, very weak as a tri-lane support. It's due to the fact that he needs levels to be effective. Undying, much like the Bristleback or an Axe, first 20 minutes, he is God. He is Jesus, he is Lord Gaben. You cannot touch him, you cannot kill him, he will laugh at you and smite you. with his Fists of Fury. Undying's biggest strength is that he gives you such an incredibly powerful 20 minutes that you could end the game in those 20 minutes or put your team in such a good position that the enemy team just can't recover, because you're able to win these fights so decisively that your core is able to find farm, that your supports are able to find farm through these kills, and that you should be the step on the enemy team. They do pick up Witch Doctor synergized with the Voids. They've got the Mystic Flare and the Death Ward, so Tuzki or Husky, they've got a very, very powerful teamfight lineup should they get a good Chronosphere. They also ban out the Death Prophet and the Ember Spirit, so once again, respect ban Ember. And very interesting ban with the Death Prophet, since Death Prophet very powerful counter against the Void. But considering they picked up the Razor, it's a bit of a 50-50 matchup, Death Prophet v Razor. So Death Prophet ban, much more of a safe ban to ensure that they don't have to deal with it, since Death Prophet very powerful counter to Void. If she pops Exorcism and faces Void, Chronospheres her. Because he's going to be in melee range, the Spirits will continue to hit him, and they might actually do enough damage to, if not kill him, zone him outside of his own Chronosphere. Yeah, nah mate, off to ban out the Nyx Assassin, so we just got YOLO bans coming up from them at this point. Nyx Assassin, viable pseudo counter to do so because you've got the mana burn. But that being said, if you're picking Nyx Assassin just for the mana burn, you're going to be putting yourself in a bad time, just because Nyx Assassin doesn't do too well against Tide, doesn't do too well against the Disruptor who could lock him down with the Static Storm, it doesn't do too well against the Undying, it's got nowhere to deal with the zombies. So Nyx Assassin could be powerful because, that being said, if he gets a good start, Disruptor becomes food. Since if he's able to pick up Vendetta and Disruptor doesn't have Static Storm yet, and he's out in the zone, Vendetta him, Impale into the Carapace, and ensures that you should be able to find a kill on him. So the Nyx Assassin could be a viable pickup, but most likely going to be a ban just to ensure that, yeah, nah, mate, just cover their bases. Since the only thing they have to ensure is that Dusa doesn't die. If Dusa doesn't die, they win this game. Because Dusa can 1v5 their entire team. She is the definition of a hard carry that can go 1v5. One of the Luminous, one of the casters back in his Dota 1 days, used to say that Dusa is the most boring hero in the game, because you pretty much farm until you go Lincoln Sphere, Ayaskadi, Divine Rapier, you A-click their base, and you pretty much win, because there's nothing they could do to you with Spell Shield on, with a Split Shot. You don't even have to use Stone Gaze, you just deal so much damage, you're so hard to kill, that you just outlast them. She's the definition of war by attrition. You just have to break through the Mana Shield, which is going to be so difficult to do so, although that being said, they do pick up the Invoker. So Invoker, a fantastic way to be able to break through the Mana Shield if he goes Cross Wex, but of course the weakness of Invoker going Cross Wex is it drastically weakens his laning phase. So very interesting draft coming up from Tuzki or Husky. We might be seeing the offlane Void with this one position Razor, or we could even see offlane Void with the one position Invoker, which is something that teams used to do in the TI4 era because you had the Sunstrike to synergize with the offlane Void to ensure that Void is able to find kills and find experience inside his Chronosphere. Because you've got three ways of guaranteed setup. You've got Death Ward, you've got Mystic Flare, and you have Sunstrike. So it gives you enough options that Void could find kills across the map. So that could be the rationale behind going for the offlane Void. But if they do go for the offlane Void, there's the Disruptor to counter you. And Disruptor with the Glimpse completely neutralizes Void's impact. Pork actually has picked up Void, so we could actually be seeing a mid-position Void with an offlane Invoker. Offlane Invoker, not really the greatest thing in the world, especially against the Disruptor, because Invoker is going to be dependent on his maneuverability to be able to stay out of range, to rely on, at worst case scenario, Ghost Walk, as well as the Wex movement speed. Disruptor laughs at your face with Glimpse. And looks like we're going to be seeing a mid-position Silencer as Mule. We're going to be picking that one up. And Silencer, hard counter to the entire lineup of Tuzki or Husky. He drops Global Silence as Pork time walks in to start set up with the Chronosphere, and you just laugh at them, because there's now nothing they could do. Void can't Chrono because you've got the 0.54 cast point for the Chronosphere, compared to the 0-second cast point of Global Silence of Mule. If he's quick with his fingers, the instant he sees Void Time Walk, Global Silence, Pork is now in a very bad position. You laugh at his face, he's behind enemy lines, you smack him around. The rest of his team are forced to disengage. If they chase after the Void, they're going to die. So that it means that you're guaranteed at least one kill. Also, you've got a guaranteed way to disable the Death Ward coming in from Lithium. So if Witch Doctor ever picks up an Agnum Scepter and you become very afraid of the Witch Doctor, then you've got a guaranteed way to prevent him from being able to drop that Death Ward. So you wait for him to drop it, then you instantly press R. Even if he has BKB, it will interrupt that channel. It's a good way to deal with him. Otherwise, you could use Global Silence and kill Lithium inside that window, which is going to be the most likely scenario, since Lithium probably won't be finding too much farm in this game, unless if Pork is able to get some fantastic Chronospheres. Looks like we have a pause once again. Not too sure who's having issues. Looks like the JK might be having some more 1k ping issues, or it could be Lithium. And then choose the players from Tuzki or Husky, their captain. Pork going to be playing, I believe, two position faces forward, as he's usually their mid lane player. La La La, gonna be the, I suppose the 5 position Skywrath Mage as Lithium, as the Witch Doctor. He's automatically gonna assume 4 as you want to make sure he gets the Aghanim Scepter to buff his Death Ward. Tumbling, or otherwise going by standard I Suck lol, gonna be the 1 position Raze in the tri-lane, and the JK gonna be, I believe, the off-lane Invoker. That is if they assume the last rolls they did in game number 1. They could decide to mix it up and have an off-lane Void as well as a mid Invoker. If he goes Cross Exort, much more viable. Cross Exort Invoker mitigates his biggest weakness, which is his limited early game laning stage, as well as the fact that Invoker has very low base damage if he goes Cross Wex. So Cross Exort gives you a very easy laning phase. Once you get that second point in Exort, it gives you a way to set up solo ganks, which is something that Cross Wex Invoker can't really do unless he farms up an Orchid Malevolence. And then you've got the global Sunstrikes run across the map every single time Pork throws in the Chronosphere. On the boys from Dunedin, yeah, nah mate, we've got Rizza, Gizza, and the King Killer going to be playing the 1 position Deucer in the safe lane. Broder going to be the 4 position Undying. Cox going to be the 5 as a Disruptor, or Disruptor, UGTFO. Once again going to be playing the Watermelon and the off lane, and Mule going to be the mid lane Silencer. Don't think I've actually seen Mule play Silencer in that mid lane role, usually when Silencer is picked up. But yeah, nah mate, they tend to run him as a safe lane farmer, or they tend to run him as a 4, just as an ult bot basically to press R when need be. Silencer in the core position role, especially in the mid lane, the biggest strength of that is the fact that Silencer in the 1v1 matchup, very powerful laner. You've got the Curse of Silence, which is situationally amazing, otherwise it's average, and you've got the Glaives to ensure you've got more base damage than them, so it's a very powerful hero to control that mid lane. And since Silencer's biggest weakness as a core hero is he's incredibly squishy, and he doesn't have an escape mech, but in that mid lane matchup, if you get enough farm, you don't really have to be as worried of ganks, because if you've got TP support coming in, you can usually turn them around. Even if you die, if you get a curse off, you've got something there to clean up, might be able to turn that around, and of course if you are able to find kills, you start to pull out the control with that intelligence seal. 4-man smoke rotation coming in just to ensure they get a ward placed off, so we actually could be seeing an off-lane Razor. Oh, never mind, he is actually moving with them. UGTFO gets called out, Pork, Time Walk's 4, first hit! Bash actually coming in, never mind, else a casket. UGTFO could be taking a death. Anchor Smash turns around and gets smacked down by Pork. For a moment, thought he had Time Lock and Time Walk, but turns out it's just a cast coming in from Lithium. And Pork, with that kill, going to be very happy with himself. Looks like he is going to be walking into the mid lane. And with that poor man shield being pulled 2 tangos. Void, in terms of sheer mechanics, he's actually a very good mid lane hero, since he's got such high base damage, high base armor, and he's got a fantastic animation. The issue with the mid lane Void is you're going to be forced to go for an Aghanim Scepter to ensure that the rest of your team can utilize your ultimates. The only reason why you send Void to the mid lane so you can get a very early Chronosphere. And so that means if you really want to capitalize on that, you're going to be going for the Aghanim Scepter. Or I suppose the A2C build is to go for the Refresher Orb, which is fine and dandy, but the drawback of that is it means that you actually have no damage potential outside of your ultimate. You essentially a giant ult bot, and that can be big. But if the enemy team build around that, which in this case I have the Disruptor, the Silencer, and the Deucer, and I suppose the Ravage from Titanizer as well, very difficult for it to be effective. Since you usually want a mid lane hero that's either going to have a massive amount of tempo, so a hero like a Puck or a Beastmaster, that could gank across the map, that could set up kills everywhere, constantly apply pressure, and provide you a large amount of teamfight control. Or you want to pick up a hero that scales well into the late game, such as an Invoker or a Shadow Fiend. So a Greedier 2, or even a hero like an Ember Spirit that can do a little bit of both, if the player's skilled enough and if he's got a good... if he puts himself in a good enough position in the first 10 minutes. Void, he gives you good team fight, but you're working around, I believe it's 130 second cooldown at level, and it was the level 1 ulti, and so you're not able to apply as much pressure as you'd like, just because you have 2 minutes every single time that you can't do anything. Unlike a Death Prophet, it can still gank with the Crypt Swarm, it still has excellent lane control, and still has a way to reliably flash farm. Void doesn't have any of that, he just hits very hard. So he's just going to rely on just being able to hit things very hard. And when you rely on hitting things very hard, you're not going to be doing too well against a lineup that has heroes that completely hard counter your Mule. He says, nuts to your poor man's shield, I'm going to hit you with my pure damage glaze. Get rich, pleb. Since the pure damage of course completely disregards the armor that Void relies on. He has going for the traditional offlane Void build, the 1v1 build where you go for max time lock to increase your damage. But Mule, he's just stepping all over it, and because Silencer's got the Coastal Silence, and Void of course only has one spell, Silencer's a hard counter in lane to the Void. And once he starts spamming out the Coastal Silence, which he will, assuming once he picks up the level 2 coast, which he should actually be doing around now. There we go. Pork, every single time that happens, he's going to Time Walk, or he's going to cry and lose all his mana. Looks like he is actually going to the top player just to ensure he could guarantee some measure of rune control. Like camping it. The JK should actually be able to find this rune. Looks like we are going to be seeing dual lane. So King Killer, as well as UGTFO in some pseudo 4 position role. Not really too sure what's happening over here. While it happens in the off lane. Broder eating a concussive shot. Undying actually finds a kill. So it looks like the zombies were able to find one. And Cox just swiggity, just waddles away. TP's on home. Tumbling, only so much you could do. It looks like the Doge zombie actually cleaned them up from the tombstone. So Broder, very experienced Undying player. The Undying Disruptor dual lane, very powerful in the sense that Disruptor probably going to be going for an extra point in the Thunderstrike to provide a lot more damage, because you don't really want the maxed out glimpse early on. You still want maxed out glimpse obviously, but you want a bit more damage potential, so that way you can chase people down very effectively. Since if you go on Undying, he decays to keep himself alive, he drops the tombstone, he says come at me. Disruptor's able to also throw in the Thunderstrike, and Disruptor's Thunderstrike actually does a fair amount of damage, because you have to keep in mind you're also eating right clicks while he's Thunderstriking you. And so he uses that to finish you off in conjunction with the zombie. So a very powerful dual lane is something along the lines that sneaky Nyx assassins used to do. They ran Disruptor Nyx, where Disruptor would actually max Thunderstrike. Because you're forced to initiate on the Nyx assassin, because he's the melee hero that's going to be taking farm. If you initiate on him, he could react with the Carapace, he could react with the Impale, and then you're going to be eating the Thunderstrike and a few right clicks, so that way, even if you do kill one, you're always trading. And if it's a dual lane trading against the tri-lane, the dual lane always wins out, just because of the macro advantage of having more experience, of having more gold from the kills that you get, pay out into your favor a lot more effectively. The JK looks like he just sunstrikes somebody. Wasn't too sure how successful that one was. UGTFO going to be playing a Tidehunter that stacks and pulls and plays in that support position role, but didn't go for a point in Gush, and he actually could be taking a death there. The JK throws out a few cheeky right clicks, and UGTFO waddles away back home. He does have that Kraken Shell, so he's able to use that to keep himself alive. Broder getting very low. One more cane ball, he will be taking a death. Lithium once again in position for that paralyzing cast, not able to do so, and Lithium, first mistake of the match, opted to go for a point in Malediction. This is a rookie mistake when it comes to Witch Doctor. Most pro players, they completely ignore Maledict. They consider it a waste of a skill point. You go for Voodoo Restoration, because Witch Doctor is incredibly fragile. He is the definition of a glass cannon support, alongside the Skywraith Mage. He hits incredibly hard in terms of right click damage, but he just doesn't have any. Well, I say that, Pork actually finds a kill in the mid lane without Chronosphere. So Time Lord plays coming in from him. So the reason why you usually don't want to go for Malediction is A, you don't have enough damage for Malediction to pay off until you get level 3 Maledict. While I say that, Kid finds a kill in the JK as well. Looks like Mystic Snake cleaned them up. And B, you've also got the fact that because Witch Doctor's so fragile, even if you get the Malediction, you're always going to be throwing your life away. And you never want to kamikaze support, especially since Witch Doctor actually does scale very well into the late game. So you don't want to give them anything, so you'd rather kill them or keep yourself alive through the Voodoo Restoration. While I say that, Cox and Broder look to play aggressively against La La La, who doesn't have boots. Broder does have boots, so he's more than able to go for a kill attempt on the Skywraith Mage with that Tombstone. He will be picking up level 2 Tombstone fairly early on as well. Bottom lane matchup, Kin going for Phase Boot, so he's going for a much more aggressive European style build with the Death Proc, with the Reducer. Since usually players tend to go for treads, it's a thing among the Western players that you go for Phase Drum on Deucer into BKB or Mask of Madness, play very aggressively early on, then you go for the Divine Rapier. That's the Go Black build, which gives you a massive amount of mid-game, so it means that Deucer is always going to be powerful at every stage of the game. Since the biggest weakness of the Lincoln Sphere is it's a defensive item, well, I say that though, Pork going in for kill attempt should be able to find it. And Pork on the killing spree, so looks like he actually found 3 kills. So First Blood against UGTFO, kill against Mule in the mid lane, and now he cleans up King Killer. So he's off to a fantastic start with that, and Tuzki and Husky this time play like a much more different team. They're able to find pickoffs. Of course, the drawback of this is now Pork is useless for 2 minutes. He's going to go into the mid lane and he's going to cry because he can't do anything against Mule. He could try to go for a kill attempt against him, but Mule building a lot more damage potential now. If he time walks forward, Mule can actually man fight him and should actually be able to win. He's got 3 points in the curse, he's got the glaives, and he's got the last word to not only silence him but also to disarm him. And since Pork is going to be forced to time walk forward to even get a hit in against Mule, it'll be very difficult to be able to find kills against him without trading his own life away. Mule, because he took a death early on, more than happy to get a trade, especially since Pork has a spree. Last word being used, going to be following up the curse for Pork. Time walks forward. Unfortunately, didn't time walk in front of him, so he's not going to be able to get the body blocks off. Sunstrike flies through, and Mule jukes himself away. UGTFO comes in. He does have Gush, doesn't have mana to do so, so it's just a fake out TP. And the weakness, of course, of the 4 position Tide is Tide is a hero that revolves around this Ravage. If you're not able to get Ravage in a reasonable time frame, to be able to use it in an early skirmish, Tidehunter becomes completely useless. Anchor Smash and Gush are powerful in their own right, but they're not strong enough to pick him as a support. You pick him for the ult. That's the only reason why you pick up a Tidehunter. That's the reason why you pick him up in the offlane. Is because he's incredibly durable in the offlane. You can actually look to go for a kill attempt. Global Silence is being used. Mystic Flare, or Mystic Snake follow-up should be enough to bring him down. UGTFO snags that one. While I say that, Pork, Time Walk's falling against Mule. And Mule should be taking a death there. Pork just smacks him down. Mule actually walks forward into that, so Pork, despite not having that Chronosphere with the concussive shot setup as well as the maxed out Ancient Seal, actually doing a large amount of work there. Ensures he's able to find a kill without throwing his own life away. So the mid position Void, despite me saying that's actually fairly ineffective, not doing too bad so far. I mean, the drawback of this, the fact that Void, the reason why you run him as a 1 is for the first 20 minutes you have a lot of kill power just because of Time Lock Chronosphere. Past 20 minutes, you need a damage on him for him to actually be worthwhile. The first 20 minutes you can get away with just a Mask and Banders. But in that mid lane role, because you're constantly going to be ganking, so you're not going to be spending too much time farming, Pork, he does have Chronosphere, Dozen and Cox didn't glimpse in time. Brodo, there's only so much you could do from the distance. Might be to find a kill, but never mind, Pork. Time Walk TP's on out, and the zombies decide to actually chase him to the fountain. Looks like they might actually get farmed up by La La La, but La 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 just ignores him. King Killer in the bottom lane. Casually farming, probably going to be picking up the Ring of Aquila. He is holding onto his gold for now. Drums of Endurance and Phase, very effective pickup on the Deucer because it gives you a fair amount of stats, and with the Ring of Aquila, effectively functions as a ghetto Lincoln Sphere. The biggest weakness of the Lincoln Sphere on the Deucer is, unlike picking up a Lincoln Sphere on a hero like a Weaver, it's a farming item. You don't use it to fight, you use it to give yourself enough stats, enough sustain that you can spam out Mystic Snake and lane without ever having to worry about not having enough mana for your magic shield. So King Killer actually has to be very careful, Pork, with the Invis Rune positioning himself to maybe go for a kill, but he doesn't have Chronosphere, so he needs somebody else to set up for this. The JK looks like he's going to be doing it, and King Killer does pop Stone Gaze and instantly dies. So the JK, good recognition coming in from him with that Sunstrike, and Pork locks it in place, blows him apart. They look to go for a kill attempt. Mule cuts himself through the tree line, goes in, looks like Voodoo Restoration was picked up. Tombstone being dropped. Tumbling. Stands his ground, glimpses back, looks like great cast actually coming through from Lithium. Broad actually could be taking death, Metal actually completely whiffs. And Mule, only so much he can do. Pork down joins the fray, doesn't have the Chronosphere though, so if he gets a time lock, might be able to find a kill, not able to do so as he only got one shot in. And this is the weakness of Void without that Chronosphere. You're too dependent on RNG. And Pork, especially against the Silencer, just loses all his mana from that. Forced to blow through his bottle charges, looks like. The Sunstrike actually caught up Broder. So walked right into that Sunstrike coming in from the JK, who actually farmed up a 9-minute hand of minus on an offlane Invoker. This is a phenomenal amount of farm. This is usually the same level you find hand of minus if you're in the mid lane of the 1v1 matchup. Because he's found so many kills and so many assists. That 10-minute Midas is actually going to be fantastic on the Invoker. Invoker is one of the best Midas carriers in the game, especially across Exalt Invoker, because you want more experience, so you could get the more points in the Sunstrike early on through the Exalt. And the attack speed's always nice, since Exalt Invoker hits incredibly hard, so the attack speed's always nice, fair and dandy. Since Invoker, he's effectively a semi-carry. You pick him up so you could take the game to the late game, or take fights in the mid game when you have access to the Deafening Blast and Equal combination. La La La. Smokes up Pork, and Pork with that Mask of Madness, ready to drop Mom Spaghetti on some fools and Cox. He might be it, as he's using his illusion to waddle around with Pork. He's got Chronosphere available. And Mule looks like he's going to be the target. He's exposed himself. The weakness of the Silencer, of course. Looks like Chronosphere isn't even used. Sunstrike being used. Glimpse back, and Pork actually getting kept alive. Mule just barely brought down with a Death Ward. But they have to waste the Death Ward as well as the Chronosphere to ensure that kill. Cox, a little bit unfortunately, wasn't able to do that a bit earlier. But he only had 2 points in Glimpse, so it's understandable. That being said, 2 ultimates in exchange for a kill. Mule being quite heavily shut down. And yeah, nah, mate. Typical plays coming in from them. Throwing game number 2. Since they know it's a best of 3, usually you see them go 1-1 pretty much every single series. I think they've gone 2-0 in the UGC Season 2, I believe once or twice. And every other series, so 6 series, they've gone 1-1. Now JK playing very aggressively against Ken. Ken pops Stone Gaze, keep yourself alive for now. Mystic Flare might be enough, not going to be used though. La La La. Tons of stone, and Pork as well, actually petrified. Broder smacking him a few times. Global Silence being used. Kid doesn't have enough mana to TP out, so even though he has one standing his ground against La La La, might be to turn around for a retaliatory kill. Curse of Silence being used. La 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 actually might die to the dot. Broder smacking him around as well, and Mule just barely off-fighting a kill. Sad Silencer, no intelligence stolen so far. Cask actually bounces back to Broder. Locks Mule in place for a Melodic, but it's a level 1 Melodic. Mule just walks it off. This is the reason why Melodic's usually fairly ineffective that first point. He just bubble charges through it. And while that happens, UGTFO, still not level 6, gets easily cleaned up. And yeah, now mate, looks like we are going to be seeing some throws coming in from them, since they know there's game number 3 coming up should they lose this. They're not too afraid of being a little bit unconventional. Sometimes it works, most of the time it blows up in their face. Pork, now that he's got the Mask of Madness, probably going to be going for the Maelstrom if he wants to increase his damage output past the 20-minute mark. Or he could choose to go for the an early BKB, which would be a much more prudent pickup, especially against the Disruptor combination with the Silencer. So that way, if he gets Global Silence, he can pop BKB, ensure that he still gets that Chronosphere off. And also use it to disregard the Static Storm or the Glimpse coming in from Disruptor, which is another great way to control and lock down the faces forward. And this is why, yeah, now, mate, they're giving Cox a lot of free farm in that mid lane, just to ensure he picks up that Static Storm, because they're going to be dependent on that as another way to deal with the Void. Pork smoked up once again, and Tuzki or Husky, they're on the hunt. King Killer, Mana Shield's actually not active. This is another mistake I've noticed them doing. Usually when you're playing as Deucer, if you think you're at risk of getting yanked, you pop Mana Shield. Usually 9 times out of 10, just keep Mana Shield on you at all times. Chronosphere being used, and the Mystic Flare, Sunstrike's also coming through, and Ken cleaned up. Especially if you go for the Fez drum build, you always want to keep Mana Shield on, just to make sure that on the off chance you happen to get YOLO ganked, like the ones that have been happening to him, you stay alive for a little bit longer. In that case, even though he's actually only got 1 point in it, so you usually see Mana Shield maxed out very early on before you max out Split Shot, because he's going for this European style build, which is very aggressive. You choose not to do so. Mule, of course, gets whacked down by Tumbling. UGTFO comes in, he does have a Ravage, it's actually silenced. It's worn off. Now he can actually choose to Ravage, it's only going to get it on Pork. Actually, Time Lock is out, and UGTFO, PGG level Ravage on a scale of 1 to 10. Brody gets cleaned up by Tumbling. Tumbling can actually go for against all 3. Should be a fun triple kill. Ultra kill actually coming out from him. If we have a look at the Golden EXP graph, 5,000 gold lead in their hands. Ken Killer coming in one at a time. Pop Stone Gaze, now going to be throwing his life away. As Paul could choose to commit to this if he really wants to. It's about a 7,000 lead in terms of gold. 7,500 lead in terms of experience. Yeah, no, mate. Looks like they're throwing game number 2, so we are going to be seeing a game number 3 at the rate they continue to do this. They do have some recovery mechanic. If they get one good fight, where they're able to neutralize the effect of the Chronosphere, either through Global Silence, or through Static Storm, or through ravaging him when he Chronospheres somebody else, they might be in a ton of this, just because they do have the incredible Medusa, who is able to outlast and outfight most carry heroes. But however, it looks like Pork could actually be going for the Maelstrom build, since he started with the Mithril Hammer. Gives him a lot of flexibility, so I like the Mithril Hammer pickup coming in from Pork. It means he could go for either the Maelstrom if he wants to be cocky, or he could go for the BKB if he decides to play a bit more safe. Either way, both items build from the exact same item, so it gives him that flexibility. UGTFO, not going to be finding a Blink Dagger for another 3-4 minutes at the rate he's farming, assuming he doesn't die, and assuming he doesn't get another PPD level Ravage. The JK. Looks like he's going for the Yule Scepter, so he's going for a very pub style ganking Invoker. The reason why Yule Scepter is such a powerful pickup on Invoker going cross Exalt, Yules them up into the air, Meatball, Sunstrike, instant kill on most heroes. I believe it does something like 900 damage with 475 being pure. Cox, whacked down by Pork once again. Pork hasn't taken a single death. If they kill Pork, huge amount of gold, but while that happens, Mule can get blown apart. Chronosphere setup coming in from Tuzki or Husky. So good draft coming in from them. They're really playing it to perfection. They realize that mid faces Void's biggest weakness, the fact that he's dependent on that Chronosphere, so they're making sure every single time he Chronos, he finds a kill. Every single time Pork has Chronoed, he has found a kill. And so it's been working out quite effectively. King Killer standing his ground against RJK, just TPs on home. That's a Stone Gaze wasted once again. Deucer nowhere near the amount of farm she needs, especially since she's going for this mid-game oriented build. Phase Drum into Mask of Madness, BKB, Divine Rogue Periods, usually the build order for the Go Black build. Nowhere near his drums. Well, should be funding in about 170 gold, but that's not going to be the item you need. Phase Drum, it's an item that's going to help you lane better, help you go for solo kills that you already would have gotten. It's going to keep yourself alive a little bit longer. It looks like Pork actually is going for the YOLO build, so Maelstrom. The weakness of this is he's put all those eggs into one basket. If mate, if they stop throwing and actually group up for a proper fight, if they're able to get one good Global Silence to disable the Chronosphere, so as Pork time walks forward, Global Silence, or Static Storm, Pork is now caught in a very bad situation. Because there's such a ridiculous amount of net worth locked up in Pork, if they're able to find a kill on him, they should be feeding, I believe since he's actually on a monster kill streak, about 2,000 gold just from killing Pork going to the entire enemy team. Really can't afford to do that. It actually could be more like 1,500, but because the ratio is so high towards the enemy team, probably only 2,000. There's now a 12k gold worth and net worth and going in favor of Tuzki or Husky. Looks like about 12,000 EXP lead. We now have a 17-minute phase, Drums of Endurance. On King Killer is actually smoked up. Deuce is a hero that you usually don't want to be ganking with. No one says, oh no, Deuce is missing, she might be ganking us. Just because, what is she going to do? She's going to hit you a few times and then Mystic Snake you. La 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 though. Mystic Snake does a cheeky 150 points of damage, trying to deny himself to Roshan, but Mule finally steals his first points of intelligence in the game with that final glaive. Mule incredibly poor. Silencer, if you send him in that core position role, you do so with the intent of him being able to get a very early Aghanim Scepter Refresher Orb. Nowhere near the Ags, not even anywhere near the point booster. So Mule, very difficult lane once again. But unlike game number 1 where he was able to recover past the laning stage, not able to do so. He's being shut down hard. Finally able to find a kill. So Pork, despite him poking in front of him with the Glaives of Wisdom, able to rise against it. And now there's the JK, has that Yule Scepter, can use that to set up easy kills on Kin. Or on anyone he really finds. The only hero that will be able to survive the burst will be Kin. But then, assuming there's somebody else to follow up, they should be able to bring him down. Because I believe that you've got 475 from the Sunstrike, the maxed out Exalt, so about 412 pure damage. Then you've got the Meatball, which does about 800 damage at max level. So I believe about 700-ish, with only 6 points in the Exalt. So you've got effectively 1.1k damage, with about a third of that being pure. King Killer called out once again the Congress Bear. They should be able to keep himself alive. Now here's the turnaround we're talking about. King Killer turns around against Pork, and Pork actually should be taking a death. There we go. 2,000 gold going to the hands of mate. But while that happens, Tumbling walks on in. Meatball burning Mule alive. Mule Yule Scepter into the air, and the JK hits him once, brings him down. Whoops coming in from Tumbling. La 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 stands his ground against UGTFO and kills him. How often do you see a Skywrath mage outfight a Tidehunter? Cox comes in a little bit late to the party. Looks like he actually, did he buy back? Yeah, he did buy back for that one. So even though they were able to find that kill, actually they didn't find as much kill gold as I'd like from bringing down the Faceless Void. Looks like the EXP was a much more important factor. Just from those 2 kills, 900 core and 12 gold. It's interesting to note, they actually didn't find anywhere near as much gold from that kill. Experience, much more critical, but of course the enemy team's receiving just as much. And with that, looks like Pork, now he's going for that BKB. They were at least able to end that spree, so they did find an influx of much needed gold. That being said, I think due to the fact they bought back, maybe that's the reason why the gold recap is slightly disparate. They should have gotten at least 1,000 gold since all 5 members of the team were there for the assist. And King Killer, phase drum, I believe he did take a death in that fight. So the weaknesses of this build is if you get off to a slow start, none of the pieces really help you too much. Because if the game goes late, phase drum Deucer isn't really going to be anywhere near as effective as Tread's Lincoln Sphere. Since Deucer really needed to go for the conventional build to Treads into Lincoln Sphere to keep herself alive for as long as possible, King Killer really needed that maxed out mana shield just so that he didn't instantly die every time he gets chronoed. Lithium, Arcane Boots picked up on him. Actually choosing to max out the Malediction. Drum's actually being used, I think it was used by Kin. Never mind, it was used by Tumbling. He's playing very aggressively. Blink Dagger now picked up, so you've got a very mobile Invoker with the Blink Yule Scepter. Set up ganks across the map. Also got maxed out Exalt. So incredibly aggressive build coming from the JK. Usually you see 3 points in the Invoke at this point. Choosing to forego that, playing very aggressively with the 7 points in the Exalt, gives him that execution combo. The Blink Yule set up with the Sunstrike. Meatball, and if you've already got those 2 invoked, you could also invoke Deafening Blast to further increase your damage output. So I believe it goes up to about 1.4k damage at that point, since you get every single tick of damage from the Meatball. Pork, with the Edge of the Immortal now, can choose to go even more YOLO. We've got the setup now happening on Ken. Case in point, Global Silence as well. Static Storm should keep them alive for now. Huge Ravage coming from UGTFO. Catches the entire enemy team. Lithium could be taking a death. The Zombie should be smacking down. They do find 2. Chronospan now being used on 2. Should be to bring down Mule and Mule. He's used Global. He doesn't care if he dies. Cox standing his ground against Pork, but quickly realizing the area of his ways, Pork walks on out of there. They do find 3 for 1. 4 for 1 as UGTFO should be to clean up La La La. 4.5 kills for 1. Actually, they're going to kill Pork again. Throws actually coming in from Tuzki or Husky. Yeah, nah, mate. They're turning this. They find 6 kills, including the Aegis the Immortal, all in exchange for Mule, who threw out the Global Sun, so he doesn't really care if he dies. And with that, this is the gold swing I was looking for. 5.4k gold going to their hand, so with the 1.3 they lose, more along the lines of 7k gold, so 6.7k gold swing into their hands. Yeah, nah, mate. About a 10k experience shift into their hands. And things are looking very good for them now. Though that being said, the Undying, he's reached the point where he's hit a wall. He's not going to be relevant at this point, just due to the fact that they could kill his Tombstone very easily. and his decay is not going to be too effective just because of the fact that they can kill him, they can out-damage his heal. So there's only a 10k gold lead, experience lead in favor of Tuzki or Husky, and about 11k gold lead or about 12k. The rate they're going. But that being said, Kin looks like he's actually going for Yasha, so Manta Stealth, Phase Drum to Manta, so realizes Mask of Madness not going to be the greatest pickup. Mech was picked up by Broader, that's going to be a very important pickup, since their only issue right now is staying alive through the Chronosphere. Everything you could do to increase your likelihood of staying alive when Pork chronos you is going to further increase your likelihood of turning that fight around, since you realize the reason why that fight went so well is Pork, he got a Chronosphere on 2, but that was after his team had already died, so they weren't able to follow up. And Pork on his own, he was able to kill Mule, but Mule had already used the Global Silence, so he doesn't really care if he dies. He's more than happy to die if it means that the rest of the team can turn around and clean him out. And Mule, with that, stole 4 more intelligence during that. Pork, stealing the enemy Ancients, so making good use of his farm. A very aggressive wards now coming out from the Dire's side. They realized the only way they could win this, well, the best way for them to win this is to keep the enemy team from being able to recover, just because they do so. So you always have to respect the team fight coming out from Yaname. This entire area is now warded out, so that means that the jungle's been denied access. Their tier 2 and their tier 1's lost, so they've lost that much map control, so the only area they can effectively farm without being at risk of dying is this region. They can't even farm their own Ancients, they can't go into their jungle, they can't farm past the river on this area, since they have potential ganks coming in from the tier 1s. In the mid and top, they actually haven't lost a single tower. So Tuzki or Husky, while they are ahead, if Yana may take another fight like that, they can start knocking down towers. No towers, you have to see them as a reserve bank of gold. Since you've reached the point where they have enough damage, they have enough items built up on their core heroes, they should be able to push down towers if they want to fight. Or at least Kin on his own should be able to. Just with the Phase Drum Yasha. So the nice thing about the Yasha is Yasha's a very cost-efficient pickup. It's a great farming item. Also, not too bad as far as the fighting item goes, just because it does give you a huge influx of cost-efficient stats, so the 31% attack speed. Also gives you the damage from the Yaji, as well as the movement speed, so you're getting more hits in, so Phase Drum, as well as the Yasha. That's giving you an incredible amount of mobility. On the Dusa, a hero is very slow. She's described very much as a siege cannon, because she's slow, it takes a while to set up, but once she sets up, you're not dislodging her, she's going to smack down everything. Dewarding actually coming in from the JK with his Forward Spirit, and he gets it. Excellent play coming in from him. So even though they're able to, Cox should be able to D-ward, the ward's coming in from Tuzki or Husky, he takes out their ward as well. So he says nuts to your D-ward. He's able to clean them out. Cox, he's going for the Aghanim Scepter, as that's going to be his best pickup. Would have actually preferred maybe something like Force Staff to ensure that he could get another hero out of the Chronosphere, so before he Chronos, Force Staff himself or an ally out. But the Aghanim Scepter means that even if Pork gets a BKB, they catch him with his pants down and catch him with that Static Storm. No BKB is going to save you. Follow up with the Global Silence. They should have enough damage to bring him down. So this is the weakness of Pork going for that Maelstrom build, because he didn't go for a BKB. He died that second fight, lost the Aegis, then died again, just as he has no way to survive outside of that Chronosphere. He's so dependent on the rest of his team to immediately follow up and deal enough damage that Yaname are forced to disperse and try to disengage. If they are able to kill enough heroes within that Chronosphere, or if they kill a low priority target, such as a Silencer that's already altered, then they should be able to dig in their heels and turn this fight around. The Mule, farming very defensively, this way gives him vision of this region, as he could actually back himself out here and provide a bit more vision if he needs to. Most likely going to be, if they go for a gank pathway, going to be going through this way and check through there. So they usually assume you're going to be farming around this region. So because he's constantly hiding there, actually out of vision from the enemy team, makes it difficult for them to spot him. So good recognition coming up from Mule, doing everything he can to keep himself alive, just because he knows there's no vision available, and they do have a ward there, so he should be able to see if anyone's coming along this region to try to gank him. Pork almost has his BKB, actually should be able to find it unless he gets caught out. Invis rune's been picked up, uses Bomb Spaghetti to simply farm up the Ancients, and with that should be able to find his BKB. Tuzki or Husky, if the game does go late, that being said, it's not exactly game over for them if the Deucer gets farmed, because they do have an Invoker that's incredibly farmed as well. They do have a Razor, who's looking very good, so we do see the RTZ build. No mech, no teamfight items, just the BKB drums to ensure that the Razor himself is actually able to deal a massive amount of damage, because you're going to get a good link off. You pop the BKB with the Unstable Current, no one's getting away from you fast enough for them to be able to break the link, so you're guaranteed to get at least 4 or 5 ticks of that link. You've got the Eye of the Storm to work with, and then you've got the follow-up Plasma Field. So they're playing Razor very much in the way you'd play a 1. The nice thing about this is it's been working out by a huge amount. Tumbling got a solo ultra kill, just smacking down people because he had so much damage with that static link, they had nothing to deal with him, and now he's gone Aghanim Scepter. So if Tuzki or Husky win the next fight, and if they catch Yaname without buyback, they should be able to breach high ground with that. The drawback to this build is while Raze is a very powerful momentum-based carry, because he's a momentum-based carry that's reliant on being ahead, should he ever lose the net worth lead he has over King Killer, should they ever reach parity, or should Ken ever surpass him, Razor tapers off incredibly quickly compared to any other one position farm, just because he's not a true one. He's a 2 at best. He's a semi-carry that can hard carry if he gets an obscene amount of farm. He does so at the moment, but if they continue to throw fights the way they had, things can start to look up for Yenar, mate. So the climbing Mount Everest is going to be a bit of a difficult climb, but still is definitely viable. But it turns out the efficiency coming from Tuzki or Husky, making sure that they, while they did lose a fair amount of gold from that fight, they are stabilizing now, back at 15k. Because it looks like all 5 of their heroes are finding a lot more farm than the heroes coming in from Yenar, mate, especially since the JK has that Midas, and the 9-minute Midas really paying out dividends for the JK. Ensures that he's picked up level 16. Invoker's power level is level 17, because that's when you have the level 4 Invoke. Tumbling, actually, initiates over on Broder, pops out BKB. Mr. Fleming used him, Broder going to be backing himself away. Stone Gaze pop, it does penetrate BKB. And Tumbling, backing himself off now. BKB's going to be wearing off. Lithium actually turns the stone. Should be taking a quick death. Chronos Fair does catch out too. Global a little bit too late. Broder takes a death. King Killer as well. Being smacked to the ground. Mana Shield's gone. Static Storm being used, but BKB's being used for that as well. UGTFO comes in very late to the party. Finds one. Backs himself off. Wasn't able to get there early enough. Now going to be taking his own death. Mule comes in. Meatball deafening blast. It stomps into the ground. Mule going to be taking a death with Porks. Waxing down. Cox a little bit too late as well. Bit too slow to disengage. And looks like that JK cleans him out. And just as I was talking about Tuzki or Husky potentially throwing the next fight, yeah, nah, mate, they get completely wiped because they come in one at a time. The global silence wasn't fast enough. Had he done that to prevent the Chronosphere earlier, would have been a huge tempo swing to their hands. They might have been able to turn that around, but because King Killer went for Phase Drum instead of going for the Lincoln Sphere, just doesn't have enough stats, enough mana to work with. And his Mana Shield burned off very quickly, so they were able to out-damage his shield. And with that, because Tumbling, he's got the Agnum Scepter, he should be to take Rex. Agnum Scepter, of course, has been nerfed on Raisin. The fact that Eye of the Storm no longer persists through Aegis, this is the biggest nerf to Raisin, the reason why he's nowhere near as popular as he used to be. Since before, it meant that if you have an Agnum Scepter Refresher Orb and an Aegis, you could take a Tier 3 tower and not give a damn. Because if you died, it still continued to persist while you were dead until you came back to life. Now it ends when you die, much like a Lunar Eclipse or the Death Prophet Exorcism, as well as the fact that Eye of the Storm, of course, the instance is now 0.4 as opposed to 0.3. Looks like they were able to hold onto their Rex with that fortification. Madstar now picked up on Kin. So digging in their heels, making them fight for it. But yeah, nah, mate, have put themselves in a very bad position, especially since the one position farmer on the Dusa. She needs another big item now. She needs a damage item. So the Madstar, it's not if you pick up to help you farm better, to help you fight better because it gives you the illusions, but you need more damage for it to really be worthwhile. Since Dusa, you want to first build stats, then you want to build damage. She's got her stats, so now she wants to build damage, but until she gets that damage, she's entirely reliant on them walking into a Stone Gaze for her to actually reliably kill targets. So JK thought about going in, spots Broder, decides maybe not. And with that BKB, now on Invoker, UGTFO, who was going to be their playmaker and being able to turn these fights around with the Blink Ravage, not going to be able to do so because you've got the BKB up on your 3 big cores. So all 3 of them pop their BKBs. UGTFO, he cries because he ravages, but his tentacles can't do anything. And then they turn it around and start hitting him. And JK looks like could be choosing to go for something along the lines of a Sheepstick. If he wants to be a little bit more YOLO, could even choose to go for something like a Desolator. Cross Exile Invoker with a Desolator. Very rarely picked up. It's a very pub style item. I usually don't condone it, but it does help you push faster. Although that being said, Sheepstick's usually going to be the universal pickup. Mule does have the Agnum Scepter, so he's got a lot of damage to work with now with the double curse. So he's got the curse every time he ults, as well as when he actually uses it. So he can use that to kill the backline supports very quickly. But the drawback of this is because this is the weakness of Silence in that core position role in general. He's always a one-trick pony. You build him around the Silence because you think he can be a big enough combo breaker to disrupt the enemy team's lineup. But of course, because Mule hasn't been able to react fast enough to the Chronospheres coming out from Pork, hasn't really been ultra effective. There's not really too much point in Chronosphere after he... well, if you Global Silence after he Chronos, you prevent the follow-up. But because Pork himself is doing so much damage, you really need to do it to prevent him from chronoing in the first place, because otherwise he just pops his BKB, disregards any form of control you have, and just continues to whack down one of your targets. Pork alone can kill a target on his own, especially now that he has that Molnir, and so you really have to cast that global before he chronos or as he's about to chrono to ensure that you can try to turn that around with a quick Ravage or quick Static Storm. But because there's BKBs on all 3 of their cores, they could choose to they could just shrug it off. Looks like Kin's actually choosing to go for the Iascati route. The nice thing about the Iascati is it does give you more stats, which for Deuce you can never have enough stats, just because it increases your survivability, gives you more damage to work with. Of course, the drawback in this case is she's their only form of damage. You need Ken to really double down on damage at the moment, let the rest of his team face tank, draw fire, while he's sitting there plinking away. Because if he continues to tank up, Tuzki or Husky, their damage is going to outpace the survivability. They're already doing so with the Sunstrike kill damage, with the constant time lock procs coming in from Pork. Especially now that he has a Molnir, he's going to get even more procs and lightning procs on top of that. So not only is he going to freeze you in place and freeze you in time, he's also going to shoot lightning out of you while he freezes you in time. So reaching a whole new level of badass. And then you've got the Deafening Blast Meatball combination coming through. And Tumbling actually going for a very unconventional pickup, the Shiva's Guard. Very powerful in the Razor because it does drastically increase your survivability, which is what you want. Since you get so much damage from your abilities, you don't actually have to build damage on them. So the nice thing about it is it makes him very difficult to kill. Actually, I think he's going to be tankier than the Deucer at this point. So he's got the Shiva's Guard to work with, as well as the BKB. Play very aggressively. Otherwise, the offensive variant of this, of course, is the Refresher Orb or the Assault Cuirass. Tumbling gets about 1 second tick of that static link. UGTFO comes with a Rapture, actually catches out all three of the cores. Global Silence flies through as well. Tumbling instantly pops that BKB. Pork catches out Ken as well as Broda. Broda gonna get Meatball Deafening Blast to the ground. Pork finds one. Ken locked in place with the Mystic Flare. Mystic Flare actually gets completely interrupted. And Pork, they are able to kill him, but he's got the Aegis of the Immortal, so he doesn't really give a damn. Ken keeping himself alive for now. Broda actually buys back, and Broda walks on into the Death Watch, gets cancelled on the Static Storm. Pork smacking down Cox. This Raptor gets cleaned out of there. And UGTFO can't do anything now that he's used that Ravage. This is the weakness of the 4-position Tidehunter. He doesn't have enough farm or enough levels to be useful otherwise. And Mule getting smacked around now that he's used his Global Silence as well. He also doesn't really have anything to do. Gosh has been used on Pork, but he's just tanking it. Smacking down their tier 3s. They've got their melee racks. They're going to disengage now. They have what they came here for. They found the droids they were looking for. They're going to safely disengage, find more farm. There's no point in overcommitting because they know they're already so far ahead. Massive swing in favor of the enemy team, so with that buyback, 3.8k gold they lose, and Broda losing 1.6k. Any item he might have been looking to build, not going to be anywhere near there. Might have been looking to go for an Agnum Scepter himself, or most likely a 4-staff, just to further increase his team survivability. And we've got the cheeky aggressive ward being dropped, as well as the sentry by the dire side. So the reason why you want to do this is the biggest advantage the defender has over the aggressor is the fact that they have no idea what's happening here. So usually when you're trying to push high ground, you want to place an aggressive ward there, or there, just so you can see what they're doing, where they are. So you could choose to initiate on a target that's going to be hanging in the back, such as the Tidehunter, such as the Disruptor, or most importantly, the Silencer, since he's the one you want to lock down and kill before he gets that Global off. Mule, great Global coming out from that last fight. Bought them enough time for them to maybe turn it around, with UGTFO getting a pretty good Ravage on 3 as well. Just didn't have enough damage to follow through. So this is the weakness of the fact that Ken's still going for the Iascati. Not going to have damage anytime soon. He has to build another item before he starts to hit anywhere near hard enough to force the enemy team to reconsider. So the build that he's going, the nice thing about it is he's going to be the last man standing, but he's not going to have enough damage for it to be worthwhile. He can choose to ignore him, kill everybody else, then turn around and kill him. So this is the weakness of Dusa. Because she tends to build stat items, she's not going to be hitting hard enough for her to really go 1v5 unless if she's so tanky they can't kill her, in which case she just wears them down. Now we have a Sheep Stick coming online from the Invoker. The nice thing about the Sheep is of course the fact that it will disable Mana Shield while she's sheeped. At least I believe it still should, because it disables all passive effects such as Evasion. Should actually disable the Mana Shield, so they've got a great way to lock down and kill Kin inside that Hex. 3.5 second Hex. Nothing to laugh at. We do have a rotation coming through. Well, it looks like Lithium. Never mind, that's Lala. Lala's actually picked up a BKB. So your 5-position Skywrath Mage has a BKB. It looks like he's actually playing the 4 as Lithium. Nowhere near as farm. Pork catches that Crunch Ground 2. Mule gonna explode with that Sunstrike. Should actually be a kill Cox as well. Cox, this Raptor, only so much he could do. Tumbling. Actually, Duki that will Brodo as he gets a good cycling off, and King Killer's been completely useless now. He's losing all his damage. Even though he might get out 2 or 3 of the Stone Gaze, not gonna be enough. Ken's actually doing negative damage, gets Meatball's Deafening Blast, and this looks like game over for the boys. Yeah, nah, mate, UGTFO, late once again, goes over with the Ravage, not going to be enough. Should be taking a death, the Cold Snap's in place, and that JK blinks in front of him. Exceptional performance coming in from Tumbling, this time around in the Racer, so he was looked over the last game saying, alright, I wasn't engaged in team fights, this time I'm going to pick a hero and be engaged in every single team fight. 2 sets of racks now going to the hands of Tuzki or Husky. They should just be able to go for tier 4s at this point. Nobody actually has buyback on the lineup of Yaname. And GG's been called 37 minutes into the game. Tuzki or Husky able to clean up game number 2. So it looks like we are going to be going into a game number 3. Hopefully this time Yaname won't throw. If we have a look at the analysis of this game, the things that worked out well for the boys in Tuzki and Husky is the fact that this time tumbling on the Razor, fantastic performance coming on him, very engaged early on. He was able to find a lot of kills, still found a lot of last hits as the Razor, so even though he played that one, was very active, knew when to fight, knew when to farm, because he's playing a Razor by virtue of the hero, you have to be engaged in these fights because you know that every time you show up to a team fight, even if you show up late, you should be able to find a lot of kills. The fact that he got an ultra kill at about 100 HP, just whacking people down with that static link, really goes to show you how powerful a Razor can be if you're able to find enough farm on them early on. So he went for the RTZ build, Tread, Drums of Endurance, BKB into the Aghanim Scepter, picked up the Shivas just to give himself a lot more survivability. King Killer went for the Go Black build, or at least he started with the Go Black build, then changed his mind, decided to go for much more conventional Medusa items, but of course the drawback is since he went for only stat items and no damage, didn't have any way to effectively kill the enemy team. So he could hit them, he could stay alive for as long as he wants, but the Razor's going to steal your damage, they're going to outlast you, to smack you down, ignore you, and kill everybody else first. Brodo on the Undying, even though he found first blood, oh no, he found the second kill, so it looks like, no, Pork found first blood, so he was engaged early on, was able to find a few kills, but of course, Undying, first 20 minutes, you are pretty much unstoppable. After those 20 minutes though, if you're not able to put your team in a good enough position, you really fall apart. And Mule, for the second game in a row, really being outclassed in that mid lane. This time, he was actually off to a good start. He was zoning out Pork quite handily, but Pork, with the rotations coming in from La La La, able to turn them around, and Mule shut down hard and really wasn't able to recover. So the fact that he wasn't able to get those critical global silences off when they needed them, he tended to get off the global silence after Chronosphere had already come out, in which case it's a moot point. Just because Pork was off to such a good start that he should be able to find kills even if you silence the rest of his team. While I was criticizing the mid lane Faces Void, Pork was able to make it work because he got the ball rolling, because he was able to constantly find kills across the map, and because, yeah, nah, mate, their cores just weren't able to find any traction. So the 4-position Tide Hunter, completely ineffective, even though he got huge ravages. Had he been playing that 3-position role, he would have had those ravages a lot earlier, he would have had the Blink Dagger early on, so he could have actually single-handedly turned this game around had the rest of his team dropped the ball. So it's a bit of a pity that they decided to run him in that 4-position role. He just wasn't able to find enough traction just because he didn't have the Ravage until 12 minutes in. So now we're going to be taking a quick break, and we should be right back for game number 3. Stay tuned.